In this video, I'm going to be building an industrial style desk, and it's going to match the industrial style furniture, the desk, and the bookshelf that I built on the channel several years ago. And for this video, I'm going to be doing something just a little bit different. As you know, the Making Stuff channel recently acquired an xTool Metal Fab. If you missed that video, I will put a link to it right up here in the corner of the screen and also down in the description. And as we go along, I will show you some of the advantages of the Metal Fab. And even though it costs a little more than what you might be used to paying for a machine, I'm going to show you how you can easily save time and money and recoup some, if not all, of the cost of the machine. Say if you have a business with employees that need to be trained, or you just got a side hustle and time is money. And for this video, I'm also going to be doing something a little bit different on the format. You see, while I was filming this, I had to get an impacted wisdom tooth cut out of my mouth, and it was just impossible for me to talk. So I filmed everything building this desk and then went back about a week later and did a voiceover. So that's a little bit different. And if you like that type of a format as opposed to the montages with the music, let me know down in the description. And if you don't like it, also let me know. I want to hear from you guys. So I've got everything set up. Let's go over here and start out on the CNC machine. So here you can see I'm just loading the pass-through slot of the Metal Fab with some flat bar. And I am supporting the end because it was rather long and flimsy, but once it's all set up in the machine, all I have to do is lock it down into place, and then it's ready to go. So next it's time to move over to the software, and one of the neat things xTool Studio does is it takes a picture of the inside of the machine, and here you can see down there at the bottom of the screen that piece of flat bar that I just loaded into it. So the next thing I do is load in the little mounting tab that I want to make, and I just line it up on the picture that the Metal Fab took of the inside of the machine. And here you can see I made 6 of these, and I'm just lining them up on that piece of flat bar. And this is where the Metal Fab is going to cut, where each one of these pieces are. So this shows you another time-saving feature of the Metal Fab. So next I tell the Metal Fab that we're going to be cutting 2mm carbon steel, and then I have to calibrate the sensor. And calibrating the sensor is real easy to do. You just move this little green bullseye to where the majority of the cutting is going to be done. So here you can see I just kind of place it here in the middle. And when I tell it to go, you can see that the Metal Fab takes over and it just touches the nozzle to that piece of steel a couple of times, and this is what calibrates that capacitive sensor. So after all that finishes, I just send the program over to the Metal Fab, hit the start button, and it starts cutting. And this is the actual speed of it cutting that 3mm or 1/8 inch thick carbon steel. This is not sped up. You can see there to the left, I did screw up. You can ignore that piece there. That's because I forgot to turn on the gas to the machine, and it made about 1/3 of the way through, caught that the gas wasn't on, and it halted the process. So I let these finish cutting, and the whole process took 1 minute and 34 seconds to create all 6 of those mounting tabs. And this is what it looks like. This is exactly how it came off of the machine. And this is yet another example of the money-saving feature of the Metal Fab because nothing has to be cleaned up. I do not have to touch these up with an angle grinder. So then I just repeated the process for these little corner side pieces. They're more decorative than anything. So I've loaded 2mm carbon steel in the machine, and this footage is sped up just a little bit. But when they come off the machine, they are just as clean as those other pieces. So there is no need to do any cleanup. And yet again, another money-saving feature of the Metal Fab. Now, every now and then I did get a piece that had a little piece of dross on it. And I think that's just where the slat from the Metal Fab is touching that metal, and it just creates a little piece of dross when the torch runs across it. So now let's head over to the workbench and start working with some square tube. Now, before I start welding on this, I do want to clean this up. You can see there's some dirt on here. There's some surface rust on this square tube that I bought for this project. And I'm just going to clean it up using one of these cup brushes that mounts to the end of an angle grinder. And here you can see I've got a brand new brush all set up, and everything started working really good, but then you can see here it just started hopping really bad, and it's just that new brush. So I switched over to the old brush and it worked fine. It was much easier to control using that older brush with the shorter bristles. So I just kind of completed the process for all 40 feet of the steel that I bought for this project. And when I was done, you could see here that I got this nice bright finish. And this is what I was trying to mimic. This is what I did with the other furniture that I made previously on the channel. So next I had to go and cut all of the pieces to length, and I decided the best tool for this is just using the miter saw. And yes, the Metal Fab will cut the steel, but it's just not set up to make square cuts at the present time. So to save time, I decided that the miter saw would be the best tool for the job, because if I don't get square cuts, I'm not going to have square pieces and I won't have a square desk. So it's just a bunch of cut, rinse, and repeat. But when I'm finished, I get all of the pieces that I need. So here I'm just showing the steel and that it has a rounded over edge, and I'm going to be welding this up kind of like how I'm showing here. And you can see there's kind of a gap there on the edge. Now the Metal Fab works more like a TIG welder than a MIG welder, even though it does have a wire feed, and it's just not really good at filling gaps. And I could make multiple passes to get that filled in, but I kind of thought about it. So I decided to take just a small piece of TIG filler rod and put it in that groove to help fill in the gap. And this is just a test piece. And I go through here and I hit it twice with the Metal Fab, and the results were actually pretty good. It's a nice looking weld, and it is plenty strong for the application that I need to use it for. And it is going to save a lot of time because I'm not going to have to make 5 or 6 passes with the Metal Fab or one pass with a MIG welder and then have to go back and grind down all of these welds. So next I just move everything over to the welding table and I just start clamping it together. I'm using my Fireball tool squares here and a ton of clamps. Don't let anyone ever tell you you have too many clamps, because you can never have too many clamps. And then once everything is in place, I am just welding it together with the Metal Fab, and I am trying out my little idea of using the TIG filler rod. And here at the end, I will show you the results of that. It actually did turn out pretty well. Here I'm just hitting all 4 sides and then just welding them together, and then I'm going to flip it over and hit the 4 sides on the other side. And you can see just how fast the Metal Fab is welding this together. This footage isn't sped up. Then once all of those sides are welded, I just go in here and hit the inside corners, and none of this footage is sped up. This is the actual speed that the Metal Fab is welding all of these welds. And then when I'm done, I've got the 2 sides of my desk. These are also going to act as the legs. And here again, we will zoom in and you can see here is what 2 passes with that TIG filler rod looks like on those welds with the gap. And then this I didn't show on camera. I forgot to hit the record button, but this is a weld. There's no TIG rod here. It's just nice and flat. And I'm going to save a ton of time because I don't have to go back with an angle grinder now and grind down those welds so the tabletop will sit flat on top of this piece. Next, it's time to install this 1/2-inch square tube. Now this just installs on the inside of the frame that I just made, and it flush mounts to the front, and its main purpose is to just hold in some expanded metal. It just keeps it from falling out. And I just kind of stitch weld each piece 2 or 3 times, which is no big deal for the Metal Fab. And I just rotate around here and I get all 4 sides done. And like I said, each piece just gets 2 or 3 stitch welds. And then when it's all done, this is what it looks like. And yes, it does look rather ugly. All those joints don't line up, but it doesn't really matter because that is where the trim piece is going to go. It's going to cover that up. So now it's time to install the expanded metal, and I really hate working with this stuff because it's almost impossible to cut. Here you can see, I think I cut that with a plasma cutter and it just didn't really do a very good job. Tin snips aren't any better because they get kind of jammed up in that metal. They also bend the ends. I know a saw, anything with a spinning blade, just kind of chews those ends up. And a plasma cutter doesn't work very well either because as soon as it hits one of those open spaces, it loses an arc. So I decided to try cutting this expanded metal on the Metal Fab, and here you can see it is doing a pretty decent job of chewing through this and keeping everything nice and straight, and it doesn't stop when it hits one of those little open areas in the expanded metal. And here you can see I am actually moving quite slow. This is one of the first cuts that I made, and after I figured out the technique, I was able to speed this up a little bit. And here's a piece that I am trimming the edge, cutting about 1/4 inch off, and this footage is not sped up. This is the actual speed. Like I said, once I figured the technique out, it went rather quickly. And the last piece that I cut for this, it probably took me a total of about 20 seconds to cut it out. And then here is what it looks like. It's all nice and straight and clean. So now it's time to mount the expanded metal on that 1/2 inch square tube that's on the inside of the frame. And out of everything on this project that I wanted to do with the Metal Fab, this one I was concerned with the most. I didn't really know how well it was going to work with the expanded metal, but I just treated it like any other normal weld and just let it go down the edge there and did a few stitch welds on each side, and it turned out pretty good. Here you can see I'm just kind of banging on it to make sure none of those pieces pop loose. This is a decorative piece, so it's really not going to get a lot of abuse, but here in the end you can see how it turned out. So now it's time to join the 2 halves together. Here I'm just clamping one of the sides to the fixture table. And then I've got the 48-inch cross pieces here that I'm getting them clamped into place. And I'm just using my Fireball tool squares here, just clamping everything down, making sure it's all nice and square. And this is a little cross member piece. This is actually the top that it's on the table face down. And you can see after all of my clamps and squares, I got everything the way that I wanted it. And it's time to start welding. And like I said, this is upside down on the table. So I'm actually welding the top to the bases here. But Metal Fab does an excellent job of welding. And here's that cross member piece. And on these, I am using that little TIG rod trick that I showed earlier, and so far it has worked pretty well. I'm really happy with the outcome on that. And then here is the opposite side. Just gotta weld everything up and just remove the clamps as I go. And then we've got the 2 halves joined together. So now it's time to weld in this final piece here. I call this a kick plate. This is actually the back bottom of the desk. It just helps keep the 2 pieces, the legs, from spreading or folding in on each other. And I'm just welding that into place. Now the desk is on the ground and I am just hitting all of the welds. I'm just going around hitting all of the welds that haven't been done yet, and just rotating the desk, hitting everything, hitting all of these welds in here. And this is just weld, rotate, and repeat. It was actually really fun to use the Metal Fab on this because once you get a good rhythm going, I just would go down, hit all of these welds, and it went really, really quick. And then when it was all said and done, this is what the base looks like. So this is all of the structure. It's completely done. Now it's time to install all of the stuff we CNC cut earlier. So I'm just going to start out with these mounting tabs. These were cut on the CNC earlier in the video, and this is what actually holds the wooden top to the metal frame, and the screws will just go through those holes on the plate. And I'm just going around here. There were 6 of these, and I'm just welding these on to the frame. I've got them clamped into place. And this metal is a little bit thicker, so you might be noticing that the xTool Metal Fab is moving slower when it welds this. That's because this is thicker metal. And now it's time to put the little trim pieces and cover up all of the little ugly joints and welds and things that I don't want everyone to see. And I really like these because, number one, it covers things up and it makes the furniture, it just gives it a unique look. The furniture that I made in the previous videos had these, so I just add them to this desk as well, so everything has the same kind of uniform look and finish. And now, all said and done, the base is completely done. We've got it welded up. We've got the mounting tabs on there. The trim pieces, you can see those there. So this will give you kind of an idea of what the desk will look like. So this pretty much wraps up the metalworking portion of this project, and I'm really glad that I was able to use the Metal Fab. I can already see how it's going to help shorten the time that it takes to create future projects. And I think the biggest advantage on this one was not having to clean the dross off of CNC cut parts, and also not having to grind down welds to make a nice flush fit on all of the parts. So now it's time to do some woodworking, and I had these white oak boards down in my barn for several years, and some of them were just too far gone, but I was able to salvage enough to make the tabletop. Now these boards are bought green from a local sawmill, so I do have to run them through the planer. This makes all the boards a uniform thickness, and it also cleans up the face of the board. You can see just how much better it looks coming off of the planer. And then here's my boards all cleaned up. Next, I got to get this edge. I got to take care of that edge and make it nice and straight. That's done on the jointer. And like I said, this cleans up that edge and makes it nice and straight. And then on the other side of most of the boards, there was a live edge. So instead of running both sides through the joiner, I just run one side through the joiner. And then, yeah, there's one of the live edges I got to get rid of. And I just run the board through the table saw and put that smooth edge that went through the joiner on the table saw fence. And just give it one good pass through that table saw, and it cuts that live edge off. And these are the boards that will go for the tabletop. And I really like the way they are looking. So now that the boards are ready, you can see I cut these little biscuit holes here to hold what is called a biscuit. Oh, dropped that one, but yeah, that's a biscuit. And it just helps align the boards and keep everything nice and straight when I do the glue up. Here you can see I've got these 2 boards ready for glue, and I'm just putting that biscuit into place, and it just holds everything, keeps the boards from moving around during glue up. And here I'm just clamping 2 boards together after they've been glued. And like I said, you can never have too many clamps. You'll see here in a minute. Here is the tabletop there, or the desktop, all clamped up and ready to go. And I leave it gluing. I let the glue dry for at least 24 hours. And then when it's done, I just cut the ends off. And this is, I found, the quickest way to just put all your boards together. Don't worry about the length, and then just cut it to the final length, because you'll never get it straight because the boards will shift and move on you during the glue up. And like I said, this is the quickest way to get a perfect dimension. And then the last thing I do is I run the belt sander over it with some 80 grit paper just to kind of smooth everything down. Then I go over it with a palm sander and I work my way up from 100 to 220 grit. And when it's all over, you can see here, I'm just pointing out, these boards are not perfect, and I just love the way they look for this industrial furniture. Because that industrial look, I just love the character that the knots and imperfections in the boards show, and I just love the way that that furniture looks. So now it's time to apply some finish to the wood, and I like this General Finishes Endurovar. It works really well with the white oak boards, and it's very durable. I used this on the farmhouse table that I built about 7 years ago, and we use that table every day, and so far it has held up really well. And then for the metal, I like using the Minwax polyurethane semi-gloss in the spray can. I've found this is the best way to apply it to this square tube and also the expanded metal. And one can goes a long way on this. I just about finished this whole frame using just one can of the polyurethane. So this project is finished and I'm really glad with how it turned out. It felt really good to get out here in the shop and make something. And I know these projects can be time consuming, but this one didn't take quite as long because I used the Metal Fab. And if you want to know more about the Metal Fab, remember I made a full-length review video on it. I'll put that up here in the corner of the screen. And I've also got links to it down in the description. Also, let me know what you think about the format on this video. Did you like the voiceover, or do you like the older videos where it's the music and the montage? Let me know either way. I'd like to know how you guys feel. And if you did like the video, please smash that like button. Give me a big thumbs up. If you aren't a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming Making Stuff videos. And thanks for watching.